questions from the audience if you have questions you want to ask. We're also awaiting the impending arrival of our two guests. Does anybody have a question, or do you want to think about it a little bit?
You're also welcome just to reflect on anything which moved you or which you found surprising, rather than necessarily ask a particularly insightful question.
Yeah, good point.
What was the entree into the story? What was the thing that first opened, that started opening up for you?
The Adriana sank, and so I don't know if you recall when it sank. It was just a kind of news item for a moment, and then there was the Titanic submersible, which actually went down about a week later, which was a much bigger news story because they were Europeans and wealthy Europeans, 4 or 5 of them, half a dozen who died. And there was a huge kind of rescue operation effort that was obviously unsuccessful. But there was this very brief window of time when people kind of acknowledged that at least 600 people had died, migrants. And at that time, there was no suggestion initially of any foul play. It was just 600 people are dead. But then the team at BBC Current Affairs started looking into it, and it just felt like there was more here. Once you started scratching the surface, the statements being made by the Greek Coast Guard were not consistent, and survivor testimony was contradicting that. And so we started to open it up. And the film that you see, hi guys. The film that you see, we kind of intercut 2 narratives. You've got the narrative of the Adriana, which we tell, but you also have the narrative of other, where there's evidence that the Coast Guard are breaking the law, and there's evidence that the Coast Guard are killing people. And so we put those 2 narratives together because you have to understand that the Coast Guard are not necessarily the good guys, because it's so hardwired in us to just presume that they're going to behave as you would expect them to behave. And that's why it's hopefully when watching it, it doesn't feel like a complex narrative, but putting it together, it felt very complex for us in the making of it.
To comment at all?
Well, no, and also on top of the Adriana, there was also the Fayed Mullah footage, which was kind of, as we see in the film, kind of the strongest and most compelling footage there. So he was one of the people that we reached out to first. And I think that combined with the Adriana, it just felt like this was something that we needed to do some digging into. And there was already quite a lot of reports out there, allegations, but it didn't really seem to be in the public consciousness, even though it's like unbelievably shocking. So yeah, it just kind of led us down this path.
Thank you. Let us draw in Romy Van Baarse. Lovely to see you here. Thank you very much. And Mohammad Lheman. Thank you very much for joining us, both of you. I'm Professor Alison Scott-Bowman. I'm here at SOAS, and we're very, very happy to have you here this evening with us.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thanks.
We're very quiet because we just watched the film. So we're all...
Oh, yeah, I can imagine. It's a lot, isn't it?
It is. Any comments? Or...
We cannot see how many people are in the room, but I'm curious, was it for many of you the first time that you realized how bad it is at the Greek border, or were you already aware that this was happening?
Lady
I've got
there,
mics for anyone that wants to ask a question.
Have you got her?
Yeah.
There's a lady here with a black jumper on.
Hello, I am from Greece, and this is something that we've been screaming about for many years now. And first of all, Mohammad, I hope you're not there anymore, honestly. And I just want to ask the people here that are not from Greece and probably have seen this for the first time, what I ask from my friends, which is to boycott the country, to not visit, tell your friends, your families, anyone, please. Because one of the reasons why they're acting like this is because they want to present this idea and this myth of the magical land of Greece and how beautiful it is. And it is for tourism, partly. So by giving them your money, you are funding this, and it's important to understand this as well. Thank you. And incredible work for everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And there's a lady here with a green scarf. No?
I was just responding to whether it was the first that we'd heard of it. I mean, I've worked with people seeking asylum for 25 years as a teacher, both young people, 16 to 19, and adults. And I've heard reports of this in Greece, but also in the crossings from France to England, of boats being attacked and people being beaten by Coast Guard.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
There's a lady down here.
Yep.
Hi, it's an absolutely brilliant film. Yes, I'm familiar with it. I read Sally Hayden's book, My Fourth Time We Drowned, which covers that migration route as well, including across Northern Africa. But it is incredible to see how well put together it is, and especially the appeals to empathy from like a principled Coast Guard to actually look at that evidence and just show the human response, which is so lacking. I was wondering what impact you feel the film has had so far and where you think it should go next.
Thank you. Should we take that question now? Do you want to
Yeah.
address that? And then we'll perhaps bring in Mohammed and Romy in a minute.
Sure. What impact the film has had? I mean, I've spoken to people kind of, you know, since the film came out, it's being used as part of university lectures, as essential watching, as part of the reading list. Definitely activist groups use it across Europe now. I mean, anyone that works in the EU has seen this film. It's discussed internally a lot. In terms of what we do next, we're kind of hoping to develop a film which will look at the land borders, which are far more deadly, but also much more difficult to penetrate. There are less eyes because it's highly militarized, so it's more difficult and much more dangerous to have journalists there, and much more dangerous for the refugees that are trying to cross. But that's the hope. We kind of want to keep the momentum going. What was really positive about this film was that, you know, the news item that came out was the biggest story of the day, and that was during an election, and so it really had an impact. It even got, you know, discussed by the Daily Mail. It was like the first news article on the Mail Online, which is obviously not a usual audience. So, yeah, we just have to keep plugging away.
The EU Ombudsman was, you know, reflected on how strong the journalism in the film is, but Romy, that you might be pursuing some avenues with the European Parliament.
Today, actually, I'm in Brussels right now because today marks the 9th-year anniversary of the EU-Turkey deal. It was a deal that Europe made with Turkey, and it was the reason that the islands became very full because people were not able to move to mainland anymore. So the cabins became very full, and that came in combination with more border violence, more border protection as well. And actually today it was also mentioned during that session in Brussels, the BBC documentary. So I think what you say, it has had a lot of impact on places like this, yes.
Good, yeah.
Mohammed, do you want to tell us anything? I don't know what questions to ask you. It's really up to you what you want to say.
Yeah, I want to say something that for first, thanks for inviting me. And regard to the girl from Greece, what she said, like very probably I will not do what she said because I don't know, but after the accident, even if the accident happened me, but I like the country and I love it, and probably I'll visit it maybe by the time. Yeah, it's not about sometimes not about the people, about the land. You like the land, even if there's those bad people, but yeah, I can't say that people, or to say to them, don't go to Greece or don't visit it, because it's nice land, but yeah, the people make it bad, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah, thank you.
You're very generous, Mohammad.
Hmm.
There's a question here, or a comment, or both.
A question for the filmmakers. That interview that you had with the former Coast Guard was incredible, where he kind of incriminates himself. And throughout that whole interview, and a few of them with the Frontex kind of set up interview, where there's people are being presented with evidence which seems quite clear what's going on. During those interviews, are you aware of what you're getting from those people, or is it kind of later in the process through the editing and through reviewing those kinds of conversations that you see how incriminating they are? I think it was particularly striking with the former Coast Guard. That was kind of so shocking to hear those things being said, even when he knew that he was being understood as well. So I'm just kind of interested to know from a process how you come about these stories. Is it kind of in the moment, or is it through compiling everything?
So are you referring to the hot mic incident where he stands up and kind of talks to somebody?
Yeah, but I mean, even in that interview before he does that, he's kind of, it's quite startling what's being said.
Yeah, well, before then, he's simply denying that anything wrong is happening. And yeah, it is pretty stunning that he is denying it. But that is the position of the Greek authorities. He is accurately reflecting the Greek position, the Greek authorities' position, which is this is not that the Greek Coast Guard are behaving in an honourable way, that they save lives, that there's no criminal activity at all. And then with the hot mic, I explained to people before we start recording that their mics are running, that we've got 3 cameras, that everything that they say will be recorded. So we're totally transparent from the beginning what the setup is. But, my experience over the years is that working with people when you're interviewing them is that it takes a lot of effort for a human to be consistent if they're not telling the truth. And in my experience over the years, people kind of slip if they're not telling the truth. And the truth ultimately does come out. And we didn't, I don't speak Greek, so I didn't know what he was saying. But, there was an energy in the room which made me think, maybe he's saying something he'll regret later, but that's his choice. He knows we're recording.
Yeah, Ben had a sixth sense. He sort of, it was, don't talk during this break, don't put the kettle on. Even though we didn't know what we were getting, and we wouldn't know for another week, because then we still had more filming to do, and we still had to fly back to London, and we still had to send it off to a translator, etc., etc. But it was pretty stellar when we got it back. We got that transcript back. And I mean, for the Frontex guy, we couldn't believe the answers he was giving us. I think we had to get quite drunk after that interview, because just to kind of process everything that he'd said. It was pretty shocking. But he knew what we were coming to ask him about. So the fact that he agreed to the interview, it was wild.
We're always transparent with people. We're always explaining what we're doing. We always explain why, that we're after the truth, and then we do put the difficult questions to them, and then it's up to them how they respond.
Can we have this gentleman here, and then the lady in the front?
It says that you that you filmed it and directed it. Is it just the two of you on the? How many of you actually go on the shoot?
us two.
Just you two. And is that a stylistic choice because you feel you get more from the interview, or budget, or what's
budget?
Budget.
Well, it's financial.
No, but
I mean,
also choice. I mean,
yeah, we did have a team member come out on one occasion to help us because we've got quite a lot of equipment. So there's like the physicality of moving the equipment around. Romy was with us, obviously, because we were filming with you. And Mohammad, we filmed in Amsterdam. I mean, like, it's, I don't know, you guys should say what it's like being filmed by us.
It's a very interesting process to, I'm a journalist, right? So I usually write, or I'm behind the camera as well. So yeah, it was an interesting process. It's kind of like a bit like therapy even, maybe at some points.
That's very kind. That's very kind. I mean, that's what we try and make it like when we're filming the interviews. We try and make it like a safe space.
I wanted to ask you about the access, how you found the former Coast Guard person, and was it not infuriating speaking to him? How did you keep cool? I genuinely wonder that.
Well, our job is not to tell people what's right and what's wrong. You know, one of the reasons why the BBC could broadcast this is because it's a story that's not actually based in the UK. And ultimately, we are telling a story about criminality here. We're not telling a story about, you know, people have different opinions about the migration crisis. Some people would think we should have, you know, different policies. Some people think we should allow more people in. Some people think that the rules should be tougher. And we live in a democracy, and people should, you know, be right, you know, have that freedom to make their own decisions there. But here, there's allegations of criminal activity, so we can go in and make a film around this topic, and we just want people to say what they're thinking, and then we can put it to the audience, and then you guys can work out if you're pleased. Some people will watch that guy and be like, you know, right on, he's doing the right thing, and some people will watch it and, you know, be appalled.
We had a local fixer basically that set up that interview and an interview with another member of the Coast Guard that didn't end up in the program. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't that. I mean, he uses strong language, so it was shocking to some extent, but also not. You know, once you start digging into the subject, like, these are the views of a lot of people, and yeah.
Could I just ask, Resham, you had a question, didn't you? Do you want to ask your question? Oh, you got the mic. You haven't got the mic.
I don't know who was first. Okay. First of all, thank you so much for sharing your stories and creating such an impactful film. I think all of us here were left feeling I was left feeling quite hopeless and dejected about the possibility of systematic change, since 600 people have kind of drowned and really not much has changed. It didn't kind of make a lasting impact in the news, and the systems are still in place that allow that to happen. I'm kind of interested to hear your perspective on whether you think that change is possible and what it would take for that change to happen.
So I just jump in there, which is, again, we're journalists, and we're journalists on this particular project who are working for the BBC, and so in that particular capacity, we can't have an agenda. Our role is to tell the truth, and if people, and that's our role, and that's what hopefully we've done with this film, and
yeah, but there has also been, you know, off the back of this film, the journalism does continue. I mean, Nick Beake, who's the European correspondent at the BBC, did come out with another scoop about the Adriana the other day, where basically a recording from the Greek Coast Guard came out where they were telling the migrants that they should say that they want to go to Italy, instructing them to say that. So actually people are still digging into the story. Greek Ombudsman has come out with a big report condemning what the Greek Coast Guard have done. And they have opened a murder investigation into Ibrahim since this film came out. Although, I mean, I think that's just for... But, you know, it's slow and it's small and it's bits, but this, you know, people are still working on this. And that's why you shouldn't lose hope, because it's people like Romy and Mohammad that make you keep, you know, you have to keep that alive, otherwise then you lose.
But it's the $1 million question. It's the $1 million question, right? Right now, the European Commission is having conversation about the term pushback, which is a legal term, right? It's illegal still in the new European Migration Pact. It's still illegal to do pushbacks. Okay, there's not a European monitoring system that really looks at it, but right now they are trying to see how they can change the term, the legal term pushback, to see if it can become more to a legitimized kind of policy. And I think, yeah, it really worries me. What can we do? Is to keep talking about it, to keep telling these stories, to realize that a pushback is not just pushing away a boat, but that it has deadly costs, and that it's people like Mohammad that are involved into this kind of situations. Someone today in Brussels said, like, future, what did they say? Potential victims need your attention. I thought that was a very strong sentence, potential victims, because, you know, this is not the end. Greece is still doing it. So we need to be really alert and keep telling these stories.
Exactly. We will try to keep tell this story for how much we can, and we hope from the people who hear this story to do what they can do. And what the next, we don't know the next, still unknowing, and but the people who can do something, yeah, that can help, like the Greek ombudsman, that someone who have power, so that kind of maybe help us in the future. And anyone hear our story maybe also can do something, so not just hear the story and yeah, take a look out or something like this. So yeah, we need support to maybe that can change something in the future.
But on a personal level, I'm really proud of the journalism that we did and the work that Lucile did in getting the access, and so grateful for Mohammad and Romy for taking part, and for the other contributors for trusting us and allowing us to get this, you know, these narratives on television. You know, hundreds of thousands of people have watched this film now. You know, it was on the night of broadcast. It was the lead item on the 6 o'clock news. You know, you know, we can feel quite small because bad things are happening, but all we can do is speak truth to power, right? And continue doing that, even if it feels hopeless.
And there is surely a transformative power to the art that you used. I mean, I'm not trivializing this, but the sea, you give the sea, the water, her own personality. I mean, the way the water is filmed, it really makes us think about how we could drown in that sea. And we know that a dramatic narrative can transform people's thinking. If it's just fact in print, that doesn't have the same effect. You really, because you engage with us directly, we're hanging on every wave. It's very, very powerful.
We were so excited when we met with Romy and we discovered Romy's journalism. We were so excited because Romy went on a journey of exploration, which hopefully you as, you know, if you when you came to this film, if you kind of knew not very much about it, then you kind of went down that rabbit tunnel with Romy, which is, here I am going on a walk, who are these guys, what's this clothing, I'm hearing these rumors, because it's so fantastical, the story which we uncover and the evidence that we gather, that, and if you just tell somebody that, it can feel a bit like overwhelming, but the way we've built the film hopefully engages audiences, and you go down that kind of, that you know, that journey of discovery, because it is just so extraordinary that this is happening. And that's why we tried to make the film like this, so that it engages audience and that the sea has its own character.
And then Mohammad, you speak to us, Mohammad, directly on the screen and explain your story so powerfully. It's
and it's so extraordinary, Mohammed, that you and Abdul Rahman, you're both, incredible. Well, I mean, it's perhaps not extraordinary, it's perhaps obvious, but you're such strong swimmers. And that's how we meet you in the film.
Maybe before I was really strong swimmer, but in that moment I was really bad. I don't know how can I explain this experience, but yeah, sometimes I feel like second awakening, or sometimes I feel like I was just born in this accident, or it's hard. I cannot explain, but the thing, try to do it, just try to start a new life, and it's such hard thing to do, but with support from a lot of people, I still keep going, and I hope I'll still like this.
Thank you.
Mohammed is taking diving classes right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, how are you doing, Mohammed? I want to know how. Are you still in Amsterdam? How are you doing?
I'm in Amsterdam now. I get my new house for a few weeks, and I still work in now, almost finished. And I have new work, and like as what Romy said, I book for a lot of diving lessons because I still love swimming. I try to don't really make this accident affect my life, because before this accident really was love the water. And I'm doing well now. I try to learn Dutch, and I'm also start my English before I think 10 months, and it's still bad, but quite good. And new arrival here in Amsterdam, so it's really hard, but try to treat all these things. And I have a lot of friends now, new family, and they support me a lot. And it's nice here in Amsterdam. I feel really better.
Because initially you were forced to live on a boat, weren't you, by the Danish authorities? Sorry, in the Netherlands.
Yeah, that's hard. That's the hard thing. I was living in a boat like for a year and a half, and but to be honest, the first few months was really hard, but after a while I get used to, like, it's not really like the boat I was in the sea or something. It's really like good boat, let me say, good ship, and it's different, but really hard when here is the weather is a bit horrible. So when the ship night, like sometimes the ship moving, and I just woke up in the night. I remember everything, but after a while I get used to that, and now I'm in my place. So it's better now, much better.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Any more questions? Yeah.
Thank you so much for the film and everyone's contributions. Romy, this is kind of a question for you, but I also want to open up to the panel. I was really struck by your undercover investigative work with the Tinder date and that innovative kind of piece of getting access and the person that you matched with. And I think I was interested in the way in which masculinity is kind of manifests throughout the film. So that we have this quite virile masculinity that's also, I think, mirrored or reflected by the person who spoke Greek in that break. And it made me wonder whether it's emblematic of a kind of broader global trend that we're seeing of like anti-migration, far-right, white supremacists that are characterized newly by distinctly misogynistic, homophobic kind of masculinity. So I wondered if you could perhaps reflect on that, speak a bit more to that, and also kind of in a similar vein, you know, I was wondering whether there were any women who survived and didn't want to be interviewed, or like, you know, just the kind of gendered aspect of this as well. Yeah.
Thank you. It's a very good question. So I've been speaking to a few more Greek Coast Guards afterwards, not like commandos who did the pushbacks, but for example, the one that is on the ship with the goggles and who looks for the boats, and if he finds a boat, he calls the people that do the pushbacks, or a rescue swimmer for the Greek Coast Guards. And it's true that all of them have this real like masculinity kind of energy. And what is really interesting, I think, because I've been doing a lot of like thinking about how can a person do something like this, and the sentiment that plays a role in this organization is that a lot of these men that I've been talking to, they believe that they are in war. So they believe that they are soldiers of a war. So it's like they really use the term holy, we are in a holy war. I need to protect my flag. Erdogan, the minister of Turkey, is pressing a button, and then they are all coming. So this sentiment, it's really like they believe they are on the good side of history. And if you look at what these men are sharing on their social media, it's very nationalistic, fascism kind of things. For example, a meme about the mistake the US made is that they let illegal migrants in and now there's no Native Americans anymore. That is kind of the sentiment that is in these men's bodies, I want to say. And what also doesn't help is that they are together on these islands. They celebrate Easter and Christmas, all these things together. So they're in this group dynamic. I think that is also very much maybe a role for universities to dive more into like group dynamics, citizenships, those kind of academic things that we can learn from in other conflicts as well, how that impacts ideologies, conspiracy theories. There's a lot of conspiracy theories in these groups as well. Anti-Semitism also. It's really toxic, what I've been seeing online, the sharing. So yeah, I'm afraid that plays a big role.
Do you want to comment on the issue about women wanting to or not wanting to be interviewed?
It's a good question. I don't...
They all died.
They all died, yeah. Only men survived, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We did, I mean, there were a couple of women who we tried to reach out to who didn't want to partake. There's an organisation, there are a couple of organisations who had contact with the boat, and they were. It was the two people that we spoke with. They were both women, one in Italy and one in the Netherlands. Do you remember?
Of the Adriana?
Yeah, they had contact. There was the activist. I'm not saying.
Oh, no, not survivors, but people that were involved.
Yeah,
sorry. So there were journalists. So, for example, there was one woman, Nawal Sufi, who was tweeting about. She gets an SOS call from the Adriana, and she's tweeting about it with its exact location. She's warning the Greek authorities. She's warning the Italian authorities. But we did also try and speak with women survivors related to Ibrahim's case, because when Ibrahim is the one who is thrown overboard and the two other men drown and he survives, in that particular case, he arrived as quite a big group of people, and then they all scatter. And another group that scattered, that he was separated from, included a woman who was then put on one of those Greek life rafts and who actually gave birth on the raft. But by the time we had managed to track her down, we were probably the day before we were releasing the film or something. You know, with these things take an incredibly long time and don't fit in production schedules. Yeah.
So to come back to your question about is this a wider trend, I mean, we know that this is possible. We've seen it before. You go back to Hannah Arendt and the banality of evil, the fact that I was just following orders. And Carl Schmitt, during that period of modern German history recommended the state of exception, that you create an enemy within, ideally, and then you have a more stable state. So this militarization is very, very potent, unfortunately, and the whole issue about borders, creating borders, making borders stronger, building walls. You're right, it is a toxic masculinity, but it is also being supported by millions, men and women.
Yeah.
So the need to watch this film can only grow, I think, with time over the next few years.
I mean, but there are, not all men have a toxic masculinity.
Absolutely.
And Robin Sampson has, but Robin, the Coast Guard, the British Coast Guard, the guy who looks like Captain Captain Birdseye. He's a very thoughtful, sensitive, caring man.
But
and I've also heard a woman from the Greek Coast Guard being like, just don't see them, they are all from Africa. So it's indeed, it's the toxic culture of the organization, I think. Yeah.
The Greek Coast Guard we interview with the hot mic moment, he's used the hot mic to kind of rebrand himself and now has a podcast that's like about fitness and various masculine issues, amazingly. So yeah.
Sorry guys, just conscious of time, just last few questions before you wrap up. Is there anyone who hasn't asked a question that really wants to ask something?
Yep.
Nope. Oh, there you are.
Gentleman there.
I have asked one. I did notice the absence of a voiceover, and I wondered if that was usual for your films, or whether there was something particular about this subject matter that you felt it was a choice that you made.
Yeah, definitely a choice. I mean, I don't know what it's like as an audience. I prefer to watch and to make films where you're not being told what to think, because the thing about a voiceover is, it can be like the voice of God, or it can be a reporter who's interpreting things for you. But you're all, grown-ups, and you're all able to draw your own conclusions. So it was definitely a stylistic choice to respond however you see fit to the material that you're watching. I find voiceover often quite annoying, but I have done it in my career.
Yeah, and you have to fight for it as well. It's not always often what sort of execs or people that are providing notes they'll want things to be really clear, and they'll worry that things aren't really clear, and often their suggestions will be to have voiceover and to have cards, and that's something we really fought for.
Yeah, because you have to think more if you're not being told it. A voiceover is sort of basically enabling you to engage less, but it is also harder because all of the little kind of sticky glue which holds a story together, and so why one sequence follows another sequence, it is much harder to make. But I would, from just a creative perspective, in the last 5, 10 years or 10 years, there's been a renaissance in documentary making, and the audience expectation, thanks to Netflix and other, our expectation of what a documentary should be has lifted. And so we have to raise our game, and that's good. But, if you go and watch a movie with Brad Pitt or, Hollywood stars in it, you don't have a voiceover coming in telling you what they're doing. And you watch it. And so we're trying to make it more like a narrative film.
Thank you.
I wanted to add to the previous question and to Romy's answer that there is a context in Greek politics of heavy right-wing ideologies. We had the Golden Dawn, which was in the parliament, and how these men are not only celebrated, they are members of the community, and they do these crimes, like even on the island I come from, and then they go to their families, and they have really respectful families and a really respectful name, and they are respected from the community itself. And I think context really, really matters, especially when we're talking about Greece and the toxic masculinity of the country. But yeah, this is very, very, very normalized there.
But even the giant... Oh, go on.
No, go on. Well, I was just going to say, I'm just sort of hope that the film, we did try work quite hard to not make it just about Greece and to bring in the EU and to bring in Frontex, because the truth is Greece has been on the front line of dealing with this problem, and the way that it's acting is very convenient for other countries. There's a reason why it keeps doing it and no one says anything, despite these incredible allegations. It's because they're happy they're doing the dirty work. So I hope that also came across as well.
Yep. But also the way it's just, even we don't use the phrase pushback in the film consciously, because I just find that particular phrase just to be very dehumanizing. A pushback sounds quite soft and reasonable. If somebody's coming on to me, I might, push them back, and that feels defensive. Whereas, in fact, the allegations and the criminal activity which we have evidence for, they're very aggressive. That's not a,
So I think, do you want a microphone?
I don't really like microphones.
But we can't hear you.
Can't hear me? Okay,
it'd be better to...
Louder, but... Okay, no, it was just as you said before that you were hoping to do further work around migrants trying to cross, looking at the land borders. And it was just a recommendation, if you haven't seen it, which is the Agnieszka Holland film, Green Border, which is about Poland, Belarus.
Yeah. I haven't seen it, but it has been recommended to me a few times, so I'll watch it. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for coming.
Yeah, thank you, SOAS.
Yes,
Thank you,
yes.
Alison.
Well, so should we ask...
I actually just wanted to ask Mohammad a question before we wrap up.
Question.
For Mohammad?
Yeah.
Hey, Mohammad, it's Risham. Thank you so much for being here. I just wanted to say, I think just seeing you on screen, seeing you smile, I think gave a lot of hope to the audience. You can't see them, but yeah, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your positivity and being so determined to shed light on this. I just wanted to quickly ask why you felt like you could share your story with Lucile and with Ben, and what made you want to unfold this story on this project.
Yep. Sorry, I didn't hear your name, but thanks a lot for your comment. What pushed me to help Lucile and Ben to make this documentary is the thing I really try to make it is to tell this story to more people, so make it more spread. Maybe something can be changed in the future, even if this 600 person died in the sea, and that's still, these things still happen in the sea, So it's not finished. It's not this accident and it's done. There is still people coming, still people died at the sea, and no one heard about them. So that's what we try to do. And I find it really a chance when Lucile contact me and say to me, we want to make a documentary, and maybe that can help to make your story more famous, and we make it spread or something. So I was really happy to do that with them. And that's the most thing I try to make it, to tell this story for more people. Maybe, we hope, something change in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mohammad. Thank you, Romy. And thank you, Ben and Lucile. And Alison for Terry.
Yeah, that was Mohammad, that was Resham. That was Resham who was speaking to you, who was asking you a question. Thank you very much, Ben and Lucile. It's been an amazing privilege for us to have you here this evening so that we could hear you before the film, watch the film, and then talk about it afterwards. The power of storytelling, the way you edited the film, is really, really effective, because it really makes us think. It makes us decide what we think is happening. So you're absolutely right that you're not telling us what to believe. You're not telling us how it was. You're explaining like a mosaic with many different voices. And I thought the sequencing was really, really powerful, because we're waiting all the way through for that couple on their yacht. We want to know what they decided to do, and maybe halfway through we worked out what they might say, which perhaps is what the most of the world, the majority of the world would say. I'm just turning away, it's dangerous, these people might take over my boat. I mean, that was very symbolic, wasn't it, what they said there? So we have to turn towards you and try to present this film to our friends and our contacts and make sure that we can keep the story going. But we couldn't do it without your amazing artistry and your amazing creativity and your strong ethical grounding. It's a really powerful film, and it's amazing, fantastic. And Romy and Mohammad, thank you very much for being with us. Fantastic to meet you even online. And we should thank Lucile and Ben and hope for more films and more amazing work from you. Thank you.
Thanks, Alison. Thanks, SOAS. Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thank you all.